What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Embody Radio, the premier podcast for high-performing humans looking to develop their unique formula for embodying their happiest, healthiest, highest selves. I'm your host, Emily Duncan, and we are here. We are here at the end of 2022 for a nice little 2022 recap episode. And I wanted to do a recap episode for a couple of reasons. For one, it was a big year. A lot happened this year. So just covering all of that and honoring all of that. But secondly, between myself and friends and colleagues and just virtually everyone that I've talked to this year, I've literally only talked to one person who was like, yeah, 2022 was the best year of my life. And for a lot of us, 2022 wasn't a bad year, but there were a lot of really challenging moments. And it was a year where nothing went the way that we anticipated. And I know for myself, a lot of, again, friends, colleagues, etc., we had some goals that we met. We had some goals that, we were on our way to meeting, and then curveballs got thrown in our way. And so I think it's also just helpful to provide a look at a year that I have a lot of gratitude for, but that also wasn't perfect. I know it's really discouraging when you look online and when you look at whether it's creators or business owners or just people that you follow, and it looks like everybody else is having a good time but you, right? I know how discouraging that can be. And so I want to use this as an opportunity to provide just a super real look at what 2022 was like for me. And this was a theme that was echoed by a lot of people that I know, but I'm obviously going to be going into my life because that is the only life that I can speak to. But yeah, just provide a little perspective, a little solidarity for anybody out there that maybe 2022 wasn't what you expected either. Or if you're just interested in hearing about my life and some of the themes and lessons from 2022. So we are going to dive right in. And I don't know about you, but 2022, it felt like a decade and one night only, all at one time, just all at once. It felt like the fastest and longest year outside of like 2020, grand sweeping gesture. But truly, this year was a very weird time warp of its own. And like I said, if your conversations with your friends and your colleagues or your families have been anything like mine, then 2022 wasn't at all what you anticipated it would be. And so we're going to reflect on the good, the bad, the ugly, use reflection as a tool for growth, use it as a tool to set the stage for an amazing year ahead, all of that stuff. So I want to start out with my intention going into 2022. So one of my favorite brands that I've worked with for quite some time now, Cure Nutrition. Quick pause. If you are in the market for some amazing hemp/CBD products, Cured is for you. Just use the code Emily at checkout. The link will be in the show notes. You can try some of their products, the Serenity Gummies. I kid you not, helped get me through Q4. Shout out Serenity Gummies, but truly some of the best CBD and hemp products on the market. Casual plug. But one of my favorite brands that I've worked with for over 5 years at this point, because I just turned 5 this year, Cure Nutrition, they put up a post at the beginning of the year asking everyone what their word/intention was for 2022. And mine was integrity. And some of the definitions of integrity include the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness, and my personal favorite, total honesty and sincerity. And if I'm honest, I don't remember exactly why I chose integrity as my word for the year. There wasn't really a major event that led me to select it. It's not like I spent 2021 living outside of my integrity or being dishonest with myself. It just felt like a really solid, grounded word to jump into the year with. And I appreciated the idea of having a more constant reminder to check in with my choices and ask myself, is this decision, this action, or this behavior within my integrity? And just getting really crystal clear on what that means to inform me in my life, and just having that be a focus point. And so, spoiler alert, choosing an intention means you may well be presented with plenty of opportunities to have your devotion to set intention tested. And I know that showed up a lot for me in 2022. A lot of times where I just, again, it was like this year was the litmus test for my intention. This year I set the intention, and this year was like, okay, bet we're going to find out. Fuck around and find out. It's like that graph, right? We fucked around and found out about our integrity this year in the best of ways, through some really challenging and also some really great circumstances. But that also brings me to one of the major themes of 2022, which again has, in conversations with friends, colleagues, all of that stuff has been echoed for a lot of people. One of the major themes of 2022 was revision. Again, I haven't met anyone. Literally, I have one friend that's like, 2022 is the best year of my life. But I really haven't talked to darn near anyone whose 2022 went the way they thought it would at the beginning. And for a lot of us, it was by no means a bad year, but there were some really low lows and there were some really high highs. In fact, for a lot of us, it felt like the magnitude of the lows matched the magnitude of the highs. Like if it were a wave, there would be near equal amplitudes to both the challenges and the triumphs. So it was very much so a both and duality year. You know, there was progress, but there were also curveballs thrown in that made it feel like progress halted, or almost like one step forward, two steps back type energy. And whether that two steps back was, you know, an actual regression, whether that two steps back was more so just a pause because a bigger lesson needed to be learned before we could move forward again. And sometimes that two steps back was just life taking a little bit longer than we wanted it to. So I called it a revision year because for a lot of us, it was almost like a perpetual retrograde. Retrogrades are all about revision, refining, going back and looking over things again. It's like checking your work, right? And, you know, I had a revision in just about every area of my life, my health and fitness, my business, my relationships, all of it. And each time I was presented with the opportunity to revise or revisit something, I also got the opportunity to check in with myself and see if the way that I was moving through a circumstance was in alignment with that word of the year, integrity. So there's, this is going to be a slightly, I don't want to say it's going to be all over the place. It's going to be a little scattered because there's a lot of blending in of different parts of the year into each other. But in an effort to make things organized, I'm going to try and split things up kind of by categories of my life. So like 3 major categories of my life this year, I kind of had a spotlight put on them. So health and fitness, business, and then relationships. So we're going to break this year down into those 3 categories, talk about some of the goals that I had, some of the themes that I had in that area, and things that came up and how I worked through them. So we'll start off with health and fitness. So at the end of 2021, I was going through it. I was rehabbing a torn hamstring. I was winding down a healing protocol for mold, dysbiosis, and some other stuff going on internally after some testing I had in August of 2021. And I was also going through one of the most mentally challenging seasons of my life. I was on a podcast. I was on my good friend Chase Tuning's podcast, Everforward Radio, back in the late spring, early summer, where I talk about a lot of what I went through mentally last year around this time. So I'll try and link that episode in the show notes for you if you're interested more in that. It ended up being, you know, a really powerfully transformative experience. And it gave me a lot of clarity, kind of quote unquote in the end, even though I don't think we're like at the end fully yet, but it was truly one of the most challenging seasons of my life. I was in full crisis mode a lot of the time. I was dealing with panic attacks again. I was crying all the time. I was dissociated a lot of the time. And kind of late 2021 and into early 2022, I started unpacking trauma and seeking out therapy specifically for trauma. And part of that was learning how much of my life I've spent dissociated, which if you are somebody that has never experienced that, it's kind of hard to describe. The way that I experience it in my self is like just kind of leaving my body kind of a situation, which if you've never experienced it, you're gonna be like, well, that just sounds weird. And it is very weird, but just like a complete disconnect from reality. Like, again, for me, like leaving my body, all of these things. But I was going through, this time last year, I was going through a lot of more dissociative episodes. Like there were times when I would just be like, I need to make a meal because I need the mechanics of chewing food to remind myself that I have a body. Like, it was really rough, really, really rough. And honestly, I spent a lot of the time staying the night at my sister's house because being by myself the majority of the time, especially when I was trying to go to sleep, was just really hard on me mentally. Like, I could not do it. And so as a result of all of that combined, injury rehab, internal health, mental health, all of it literally happening at one time, I, lost a decent bit of my fitness, whether that was body composition, whether that was performance. And it really, really sucked. I came out of competitive bodybuilding end of 2020, 2021, first half, really first 3/4 of the year was really, really awesome. And then it felt like I just got kind of just thwacked with everything. And yeah, it was it was really, really hard. And it just sucked because I'm somebody that I'm very connected to my physical body, and exercise, movement, all of that is a way that I connect deeply to myself. It's very much so not just a physical practice for me, but a spiritual one as well. And, between injury, between gut stuff, between mental health stuff, not being able to perform at the level that I was used to performing at, it was a really humbling time, and that just made it that much more challenging, right? Because and it also really taught me, hey, how much I use movement as a coping mechanism, just to move energy around, which I think can be a good thing. But, too much of a good thing is not a good thing, in the sense that like too much reliance is not a great thing. So yeah, very humbling lesson. But yeah, end of 2021 was not in the greatest shape of my life, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, any of those things. So I really wanted 2022 to be my year when it came to health and fitness. I wanted to get in absolutely incredible shape for my 27th birthday. I wanted to feel like a badass in the gym again after being out of commission for my injury, and just really feel like I was in a place that felt good from a lifestyle perspective. A good bit of 2021, since my season ended in 2020, a good bit of 2021 was just recovery mode, coming out of a really long competition season, prepping all through the pandemic, being in prep for over a year once again. And so a lot of 2021 was devoted to recovery from that. And then again, getting smacked by life, I didn't feel like I had arrived at that point where I was doing fitness from a lifestyle perspective in a way that 100% felt like I kind of put the competitor thing aside and like wasn't having to deal with that anymore, and was just able to live like lifestyle fitness Emily. We weren't fully there yet in 2021, and I really wanted that for myself in 2022. And so I was so ready. And to be honest, after a really tumultuous Q4 of 2021, I think there was some desperation to that goal of like, 2022 is going to be my year. It was like I was begging for a win. Like I needed it truly. And so looking back, it wasn't necessarily as grounded and rooted as a goal as it could have been, just because the energetics behind it were, again, a little bit more like, I just really need this because it's been a rough go, right? Versus I am excited. I was excited about it, obviously. But again, I think if you listen to the subtext of that, it's like, okay, I need this because I just need some kind of like affirmation that I'm on the right path, and like this, that, the other thing. And I think, sometimes that's one of the powerful things about physical health and transformations is it can provide that. I could go off on 12,000 different tangents about how it was a good mindset to be going at it from, how it was not a good mindset at it to be going from. I think it was a mix of both, right? But if I look at it honestly, some of that, the majority of that goal was really genuine. And then some of that goal was like, I needed to prove to myself that, that negative season wasn't going to last forever. So we embark into 2022. So early in the year, I made some progress and had a fairly solid recomp, just getting back into the gym, performing well again, rehab the hamstring, all of that stuff. So I was able to get back into some fairly decent performance, was doing well with digestion, not fully 100% better, but a lot better than when I was dealing with the, mold and dysbiosis stuff initially. I was leaning out, looking a little more muscular again, but things still felt a little stubborn. It didn't feel quite right. Like it took me probably 16-ish weeks to lose 10 pounds, which that's a pretty long time. If we're going on average rates of fat loss being half a pound to a pound per week, and given my stereotypical rates of loss and also what we can anticipate, getting back into training after a long period away, like that's a pretty long time. Now, granted, there could have been some true recomp where we were losing fat and building muscle simultaneously because of the nature of being out of training for a while. So that obviously, that's why you don't just pay attention to scale weight. But long story short, it felt like a pretty stubborn journey. It felt like I had to fight tooth and nail for every ounce of progress that I made. And I definitely obviously also think too, moving across the country, which I did in April, through some additional stress in there, of course, which I can't leave out of the equation when I'm thinking about my physical health, my nervous system, all of that, especially as a more stress sensitive person. But yeah, it just took a lot to make the progress that I made compared to years past. And I was definitely in a pretty solid spot by my birthday. I felt pretty good, but again, I had to fight tooth and nail for it, and just something still felt a little bit off. Now throughout the summer, things sort of maintained, but then stress picked up in business, and it hit me like a freight train. I'm not going to lie. That was kind of the theme of this year, is being hit by a freight train energetically. So throughout the summer, lots of stress piling up, big stress coming in. And then in September, just again, hit with some big stuff in business. Like literally, I felt like I was just having whatever really hard. Is a softball harder than a baseball? I don't know. Just chucked at me all the time. So September, all of that kind of reaches a head, and my thyroid tanked. So back when I was dealing with breast implant illness in like 2018, my doctor put me on thyroid medication because some of my thyroid labs came back a little bit low. And with all the symptoms that I was dealing with, that just turned out to be breast implant stuff, they put me on thyroid medication. One thing you should know about thyroid medication is, unless you are with a really, really good practitioner, if you are put on thyroid medication, there's a good chance you'll be on it for the rest of your life. It's pretty hard to come off of, or at least, in my experience and kind of what I've talked to other professionals about. And that's just kind of the luck of the draw with that. But I was put on thyroid medication back in 2018 when I was dealing with breast implant illness, and I did not want to be on that forever. It wasn't bad by any means, but I'm one of those stubborn people where I'm like, I don't want to have to be on medication for my whole life. And especially as a young, healthy, active person that never had any thyroid problems before. And I really do think it was just the implants. I was like, I don't want to be on this for my whole life. But I did try going off of my thyroid medication, I want to say in early 2021, and it just did not go well. It was a really miserable time. So I decided to go back on thyroid medication. But September, while I was on thyroid medication, my thyroid tanked, just presumably from all of the stress of everything, and which we'll talk about in a second. I think some other underlying stuff going on, right? So September, I had no energy. I gained 10 pounds in a month. I had the hardest time just like getting off the fucking couch. And depression is also often a symptom that goes along with low thyroid. And I definitely experienced more depressive episodes around late summer and into early fall. So I feel like it was all kind of concurrent, if you will. And it felt like everything was coming at me all at once. Work stress, health issues, needing to get things done, but not having the energy to, forcing myself to do things because there's certain things that only I could do, whether that was for myself as someone that lives alone or in business as someone running a company. There were definitely instances where I relied really heavily on caffeine or really heavily on my stimulant medication for ADHD. I was prescribed Adderall, just really relying heavily on stimulants to get me through life. And like, I'm getting emotional because like, even like thinking about this episode today, 2022, there was a lot of really great stuff in this year, but it was a fucking test of a year. And just like thinking back to that time and that energy, like feeling that energy again of where I was in August, September, especially September. It was a fucking test. A big one. And just thinking of what I was doing to try and get through the day. Like, wake up, coffee, sometime throughout the day, energy drink, Adderall. Like, just to try and get by, as somebody that knows like the damage that will do in the long term. But that was like what I had to do to keep my life going. And it's hard saying that, because like as a health professional, I feel like a hypocrite, you know? But it just goes to show that like even those of us that know the consequences of those things, like there are times that in order to, or we feel like in order to get by in our life, that's what we have to do, because we don't see another way, right? Oh man, was not ready for that one. But yeah, a lot of things happening at once, and it really felt like there were times when I felt like I was failing at everything, where I was failing at my job, where I was failing at, you know, my health and fitness. And can I just say, like, and I know a lot of health coaches are going to resonate with this, especially the women. There's a lot of times as a health coach, and especially as a female in the space, where you feel like you can't go through anything and still be a qualified professional, especially whenever a female in the health space gains weight, whenever a female coach in the space gains weight or deals with anything in that capacity, it's almost like people view her as less intelligent. And I've experienced that. And it's, my friend Alan Kress made a really great post about this a few months back. I think it was around the same time, about how we need to give women in the industry a fucking break. Like, the expectation for women to just be shredded and this, that, the other thing all year round. That's not it. That's not it, guys. And as somebody that has felt that pressure and also feels it almost, and this is just real fucking raw, off the cuff. Like, I normally don't talk about this kind of stuff because I don't like to sound like I'm complaining or anything like that. But it's just the reality of what it feels like to be a woman in this industry. Like, I feel that pressure even more sometimes with having a team, because I'm responsible for giving them a job. Like, that is my job, is to make sure that they have a job, and is to bring people in, is to bring clients in. Like, that is my job. And I know, sorry. I know, you know, when, and everybody knows this, when you're leaner, when you're shredded, you're getting more inquiries, you're getting more people reaching out, you're getting more people asking like, hey, you know, I would love to sign up for your coaching, like all these things. And that's also such a huge part of why I put such an educational component on what we do, and why that's such a value of ours, is because I want to minimize that as much as possible. You know, I want to minimize the, oh, we're just shredded people. Like, I want to minimize that as much as possible and focus on, hey, we're really smart and we can help you. Because that's the nature, that's the reality of it. But even with placing that focus on education over aesthetics within the company, like, it's still something that we deal with, right? And that's even when, you know, gaining 10 pounds from my thyroid stuff this year, I'm still, you know, a straight sized individual. So I can't even begin to imagine the challenges that plus size professionals face in this space. You know, that's a completely different conversation for another day. And so I don't want to sound ignorant to that either. But yeah, it's a fucking lot being a woman in this industry sometimes. It's a fucking lot. And you have to almost assert yourself even more intellectually, because like, take a look at all the shit with Liver King, right? Like, he can say whatever the fuck he wants. He can, because he's jacked and shirtless all the time, and he could be spouting off some heinous shit, and then later everybody finds out he's on steroids. Like, nobody questioned that. But you contrast that. So that is to say that a lot of times men in this industry can get away with saying and doing much differently than women can. And it's almost like, for women in this industry, we have to back up everything that we say that much more. We have to, you know, have the citations. Everything has to be beautifully created within Canva. Every T has to be crossed and every I has to be dotted in order for us to get 20% of the credit that men in the industry get. And I definitely think that's changing, and it has changed, you know, since I got into this over 7 years ago. But all of that to say, it's still fucking exhausting. And so the pressure of trying to keep up with that and trying to keep a growing company and all of that is definitely something that I feel and definitely felt a lot of this year. And I just went on a tangent that I was not expecting to go on in this podcast. But that's part of why I have this show, is to give you guys a real look behind the curtain of life, whether it's my life or somebody else's life. And I think there is a lot of like glamorization of, you know, being an entrepreneur, running a business, running a health coaching company, you know, having a team, all of these things. Like, it's very glamorized. And I promise you, like how I talked about at the beginning, how like the amplitude of the triumphs matched the amplitude of the challenges this year, the amplitude of the suck of entrepreneurship and running a team and running a business and all this stuff matches the amplitude of the amazingness of it. So every time you see a really big win, just know there was probably something just as challenging at some other point in the year or some other point in the journey to getting there. And that's the reality of it. Like, this is doing it by myself was hard. Building it, scaling it, way harder in just different ways, right? So I'm going to stop rambling about that because we have a whole other business section to get to. We're still in the health section. Sorry about that. But long story short, by the end of September, I was fucked. So from a health perspective, late September, I connected with my longtime friend, Vince Pitstick, to talk through some of the health stuff that I was experiencing. You know, I've known him for over 8 years. He's somebody that he is always growing in his craft, always pushing the boundaries of what's happening, you know, within the industry. And he's just somebody that's devoted to helping people heal however he can. And so he had been posting a lot of content about a program that they had been working on, and it was really resonating with me. You know, I'm somebody that I know myself and my body really intuitively, especially after all the implant stuff, but I can tell when something was up. Something was most certainly up. And after talking things over with him and taking a deeper look into some of the stuff that I was dealing with, I decided to go into his OID program, which stands for overactive immune disorder. And when I started consuming a lot of the content that he was sharing about it, and based on our conversations, so much started to click for me. Whether it was breast implant illness to the mold toxicity and just all of my weird little symptoms in between from the last few years, just everything started to make sense. Like, all these light bulbs started going off, and I was like, this is me. What? And so I've been doing the OID protocol since the beginning of October, and it's crazy how much different I feel already. It's a really challenging protocol. I will not lie to you. And I'm somebody that, like, I can push through just about anything. I really can, for better, for worse. In this case, it's for better. So it doesn't feel like that much to me, but after working with just hundreds of people over the years, I kind of have a better gauge for what's quote unquote normal and what's not. And that's not to say that I'm like just some superhuman that can do this, that, the other thing. It's for better, for worse. I can put my blinders on and fucking run through a brick wall if you ask me to. I attribute that to dancing for 16 years. I attribute that to bodybuilding, but like, I can do some tough stuff and it doesn't faze me, or it takes a lot to faze me. But like, when I zoom out, I'm like, if I asked a client to do this would be a lot for them. It's a really challenging protocol. But it's teaching me so much about myself, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And I can honestly say that it's worth every single ounce of effort. You know, I came off of my thyroid medication within a couple of weeks after being on it since 2018. So that is gone now. And that's a goal that when I was looking back at my 2022, that wasn't on my like list of goals for 2022, but I'm counting it as a massive fucking win because I've wanted that for a while. And so to be able to do that and feel good and not have any symptoms coming off of it like I had previously, like, major win. My bloating and digestive issues are already virtually gone. I'm consuming way less caffeine. I have not taken Adderall since at least early September, if not August. I've not used that at all. My body just feels like it's getting cleaned out at a cellular level, and it's a completely different feeling than I've ever had on any other protocol. And I'm both excited and hopeful for this journey to continue playing out. Like, we're in a really hard phase of it right now. And I'm like, yo, if this is how good I feel in the hard part of it, imagine how good I'm going to feel on the, come up, right? So I am really optimistic for that, and really, really thankful for Vince. And just, Vince, if you ever listen to this, love you so much. You're amazing. So that's the health stuff. In summary, 2022 is a year that I really thought was going to be a home run in the health and fitness department. And I will say, actually, I'll toss this one in there. I randomly power cleaned 135 one time in 2022. So that was a nice win. I wanted to do some Olympic lifting again. So not a total wash from a performance perspective. I had that one power clean. Really held us on by that thread. But truly, like, the theme of revision really came into play, and I took some steps forward, but not as many as I wanted to, because there was deeper stuff going on. But with that, I really feel like I'm setting myself up for a great 2023 where I can make the progress from a performance and athleticism standpoint that I want to, from a much more grounded and healthy place, both mentally, physically, all of it. So for anyone out there that was dealing with health issues, I can't say health issues today. For anyone out there that was dealing with health issues this year, injuries, frustrations around not making the progress that you thought you'd be able to make this year, I'm with you. And I know it can be really discouraging, but one thing I try to fall back on is the effort that I put in. I know I gave everything my 100% this year. So even when things weren't going the way I wanted them to, I was still putting in the effort. You can always put in effort and take steps forward, always. And one little anecdote to that point that I'll leave the health and fitness section with, that has majorly impacted my life, and it's something that I turn to a lot whenever I'm dealing with something where things aren't going the way that I want to, whether it's with my performance, body composition, health, whatever it is. This story, my mom, when I was in first grade, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. She had breast cancer. She is still with us, thankfully. She is alive and well, doing great. Probably the fittest she's ever been in her whole life, in her 60s. But after having breast cancer, she was put on tamoxifen. And one of the major side effects of tamoxifen is weight gain. And she quite literally had to be on tamoxifen. It's not like she could just not take it after going through cancer. So there was a day, I want to say it was back when I was dealing with my implant stuff, like 4 or 5 years ago, which is crazy to think back that far, or that is that far away. But I remember I was talking to my mom, and I was like, Mom, I was super young at the time, so I would never have asked you this. Like, I wouldn't have known to ask. But like, my mom, we were just in a conversation one day about how, when she was on her tamoxifen after cancer, like, it made her gain weight, and she just was really uncomfortable. But she still exercised, she still exercised every day, or almost every day. She still ate well. She still, like, did the things, right? Did the health supportive things. And I asked her, because especially working with a lot of clients over the years, a lot of people get into the mindset that, well, if things aren't working, then I'm just going to stop trying. Like, pretty much just a what's the point attitude, right? And my mom did not take a what's the point attitude. She still continued to focus on all of the things that would support her health. And so I asked her, I was like, Mom, what was it that when you were dealing with, your weight gain after having cancer and being on tamoxifen, why did you still exercise? Why did you still eat well? All these things. And she goes, because I knew that not doing it would only make it worse. And even if it wasn't making it better, doing it made sure that it didn't make it any worse. And I think that it's not necessarily profound, but it is profound, because so many people think things are only getting better or they're getting worse. They don't realize that they can maintain. So if you are in a position where you're trying to figure out some health stuff and you are real close to getting that case of the fuck it's, where you're just like, fuck it, I don't care about any of this. I'm going to go do whatever I want. It's not working, so it's pointless. Don't do that. Because even if it's not moving the needle forward, what if keeping up your healthy behaviors and your habits and all of those things is the only thing that is keeping the needle from moving backward? What if it's literally the thing that is holding the door open for you? It's the stopper in the door that's holding it open for you, that is keeping it from going any further backwards. It's like a plug in a dam, right? It's keeping the water from bursting. So if you are somebody, again, I could say this so many times because I see it all the time. If you are somebody that you are close to giving up, throwing in the towel on your health and your fitness because you feel like you're confused, you don't know what you're dealing with, doctors aren't necessarily giving you answers, blood work isn't giving you answers, GI maps aren't giving you answers, like reverse dieting is not working, whatever your thing is that you're close to throwing in the towel for, do not throw in the towel. Do not throw in the towel. Keep up the things that we know are good for you, and that will keep things from moving any further backwards. Remember that. It's hard to remember that until you have let those things go and you are now moving faster in a backwards direction. So just keep with it. I promise you. And when you keep with it, you're also more likely to keep pursuing answers versus getting complacent in a really shitty position. So it's all like this positive feedback loop. So don't quit on it. That was the health and fitness section for the year. That was probably our longest section because some of these next two sections, I'm going to talk about some stuff, but just for like privacy's sake, for people involved, for myself, I don't want to go into a ton of details, but generally more so just like touch on themes. So when it's just me versus me, like with my own health and fitness stuff, I'm happy to go into details because I'm the only one involved. But out of respect for other people, I'm not going to get super involved. But next, business. So 2022 business. She was a year. So first and foremost, I am incredibly grateful for 2022 in business because it was a massive year of growth. I haven't run the final numbers for December because I don't have them yet because it's not the end of the month. But we are looking at anywhere between 30 and 40% growth within FENIX, which was formerly known as EDF. That was another one of the big wins for the year was I rebranded my company when it was 6.5 years old. Actually, it was over 6.5 years old. It was close to 7 years old. I rebranded from EDF into FENIX Athletica. And I did that because I wanted, for one, to remove my name from the branding, just from a business health perspective. I think that was a wise thing to do, especially like forward thinking into the business. What if one day down the line, I want to remove myself from the business and like pass it on, right? If it has my name attached to it, that becomes, a little bit harder, in my opinion, at least. And I just didn't want it to be just about me anymore. That's been the whole goal for the last couple years, is to make it less about me and more about the company, about the team, those kind of things. So I wanted to fully rebrand, which I was nervous about because I was like, I don't know how this is going to be received. We've been EDF for over 6 years at this point. What's going to happen? All that brand recognition goes away, but it also felt so right. And as I was in the process of, because I considered both options, I was like, oh, do we just do a facelift for the brand, redo the logos, all that stuff, maybe change EDF to a different acronym? I don't know. Or do we fully rebrand? And I originally went with the keeping the brand recognition, just trying to do like facelift kind of situation. And just nothing was coming together the way that I wanted it. I wasn't enjoying any of the logo concepts that were coming forward. I wasn't enjoying any of the branding. It just didn't feel right. And so I finally decided no, we're going to rebrand the whole thing. We're going to redo the whole thing. And I landed on FENIX Athletica, FENIX, because phoenixes are creatures of rebirth and transformation. And that is what we do for people. We help people transform from the inside out using health and fitness as a vehicle for that. And then FE, the elemental symbol for iron, strength, weight training, all of that stuff. And then we do work primarily with women. So female, women, all those things. We work with all genders, all gender identities, but our primary client base is female. So just fit really well in with that. And I also just think the spelling looks cooler from a branding perspective. So we had a successful rebrand. We launched that in October, and it's so funny that not funny, haha, funny, weird, that we rebranded then, because in October, that's when it launched, because you remember I talked about September kind of being the peak of my really, really stressful season in life, especially from a business perspective. And I had multiple friends actually reflect this back to me. They were like, hey, you're going through this kind of catching on fire moment as you're about to rebrand your company to FENIX. And I was like, God damn, I really got to watch the words I'm using because I'm out here casting spells with shit. But truly, it really was a very appropriately spiritual situation, if you will, that I went through such a dark night of the soul, really, in business right before we rebranded. Like, I actually genuinely felt like I was just catching on fire and burning, and then was reborn. Here we are. So we rebranded, hired 4 new team members this year. That was crazy. That was exciting. What a time. And I really enjoy the interviewing and hiring process. Like, I wish I could do it all the time, because it's kind of like podcasting, where you're just getting to talk to people and learn them, and that's really it. And just seeing where and if they would fit into the business. But I love the hiring process. I think it's really cool. I think it's really fun, and I loved getting to practice that more this year. And it was also just a very humbling year in that regard, to be like, wow, people want to work for your company. That's fucking insane. Like, it blows my mind to this day. Blows my mind that I have a team, and that I have people being like, yo, are you guys hiring? Or yo, are you guys taking interns? Like, all that stuff. It's terrifying and humbling and incredible and amazing and magical and wonderful and splendiferous, all wrapped into one little situation. So just thank you guys for everyone that supports the business in any way, whether you're a client, whether you want to work for us, whether you just support the content, whatever it is. Like, shit's wild. Shit's wild. But it was also truly the biggest year of growing into kind of my leadership role as we built out more departments and building out more. I mean, we really have like 3 main departments. So we have coaching, we have sales and outreach, and then we have admin. And the one that we really built out the most this year was sales and outreach. And that one was a growing point as a leader, especially because it's not my wheelhouse, right? So coaching is my wheelhouse. So leading the coaching department, very natural for me, feels very like, I live here, right? Like, I've done this for a very long time. As far as like sales and outreach though, that's definitely been a bigger area of learning and growing in how to run a department, how to do it, because I don't come from a sales background. I don't come from a marketing background. I don't come from any of that. So it was very new for me, and that's an area where I'm really looking forward to refining in 2023. But yeah, really building out, and building up a new department in that way. And I just have to say, I have the fucking best team in the whole world, especially I just have the best team in general, but like within the sales and outreach department, just the willingness that they came to this year with, as far as like, we're essentially building this together and working out the kinks together. The amount of grace and support and love that I was met with by them, it was just really cool. And I'm really grateful for that. Had some business heartbreaks this year that I can't get into a ton of details about, but this year taught me how business, and maybe this is, but actually it's not just me, because I've talked to other friends in the business space, but when you run a small business and when your work is largely relationship based, so your relationship with other people, whether it's your team, whether it's your clients, whether it's your communities, whatever it is, if you have trauma tied to relationships, regardless of if they're the same kind of relationships, right? Like, whether it's business relationships, whether it's friendships, whether it's romantic relationships, like, I think it doesn't matter where the trauma stemmed from. It can trickle into other areas of your life. So like, I have some very specific traumas related to things in my younger life that it sounds like I'm being cryptic, because I don't personally feel it is appropriate for me at this time in my life to like air out the specifics of the really challenging things that I went through as a young person. But long story short, I learned how business, when you're running a business, can trigger, or like when you're in it, can trigger traumas from other areas of your life. And it really fucking challenging because it's your business, but also a really big opportunity for growth because it's your business. And it's really challenging and a really big opportunity for growth because you can't hide. And if you are the one running the company, you are now being asked to face your traumas as a leader. And that shit's hard. Oh my God. Nobody prepared me for that. I mean, nobody could. I never would have known. But it really forced me to look at and continue to work through some of my own issues and traumatic experiences through a different lens. And I'm really grateful for that, because it just gave a new opportunity for healing, and gave a new opportunity for me to like see things come up, you know? And within that, just a fucking lot of stress around running a business by myself. You know, this year was the most pressure I've ever felt from a business and leadership standpoint. And again, I really try never to like complain or harp or anything like that, because I know that the position I'm in, I put myself in. But there was definitely moments, because like I have a lot of really great friends that run their companies with their significant other, or they have a significant other that they like turn to, at the end of the day, that kind of situation. I don't have either of those things. I run the company by myself. I'm a single person. And again, that's the position that I'm in my life right now. And if I wanted to change it, I could, in time. But all of that to say, like, I really felt for the first time the kind of weight of running a business by yourself, and just feeling a lot of moments that were really painful, that were also really isolating and lonely, because you don't necessarily have someone, when you're doing this in this way, you don't have someone to talk to on the same level when you're the one running the business. And I just have to say a huge shout out to my OBM, Gabby. She's with a sister agency, and Gabby got me through this year. Here we go again. Gabby got me through this year. But yeah, there were a lot of moments where I was just like, what the fuck is going on? And it's funny because somebody asked me in a Q&A yesterday, there's so many tears in this episode. It's been a big year. We love this emotional release for me. But like, if it's been a big year for you too, just know that like, you're not the only one. But, where was I about to go? Fuck. Somebody asked me at a Q&A the other day, like, have you ever felt stuck in business and like you wanted to give up and like this, that, the other thing? And I'm like, oh baby girl, at least once a quarter, typically like once a month, just because it just challenges you. It challenges you in different ways all the time. And it's just like anything, where there's seasons of up, where there's seasons of down, where there's seasons of challenge, where there's seasons of success. There is so much snot in my throat. Hold on. Wow. We're just real raw, unfiltered. We're raw dogging this podcast right now. But yeah, I think anyone in business has had moments where they're like, bro, I want to light this shit on fire. And if you have never felt that way, I think you're lying. Or life's just really great for you. And I love that for you. I'm really happy for you. But yeah, it definitely, I've definitely experienced that. I experienced that multiple times this year, and I think that's part of learning and growing. That's part of learning and growing, is being faced with things that you've never been faced with before, and having to learn trial by fire how to handle it. There's certainly mentors and just kind of frameworks to go off of with things, but some of it, you just have to figure it the fuck out yourself. And that's all you can do. That's all you can do, is figure it the fuck out. And that's also why I'm glad that integrity was the word of the year, is because a lot of times figuring out my next step was truly just a matter of, okay, how do I stay within my integrity? What decision is the most within my integrity in this exact moment? Like, where is my integrity guiding me? And nobody's ever perfect, right? I don't want anybody to hear this and be like, oh, she chose integrity over word of the year. She just thinks she was perfect all the time. No. I come to you all always or try at least. Anytime I'm coming to you guys with something, it's because like, lived experience, humbly coming to you from the front lines of, this is what I've dealt with this. But I'm glad that was my word of the year, because sometimes that was the only guiding light that I had, was, okay, what feels within my integrity right here, right now. And this last year in business tested me in so many ways. And there were a lot of times where I questioned my purpose and everything that I'm doing. But then there were also so many moments that reminded me exactly why. For example, having our first coaches retreat out in Austin in August, just like bringing the girls together. We actually did that so that we could do the shoot for the rebrand. That was top secret information at the time. But just bringing them out. Oh man, so much snot. Bringing them out, having them all together, seeing that happen, launching the rebrand, just having a team, like having the team that we have now. It's fucking crazy. Also hosting my first retreat with one of my best friends, Sarah, back in March. They're late March, early April, the return retreat. Like those kind of moments reminded me of why I'm doing what I'm doing and why the shitty moments are ones that you just keep fighting through and that you just keep showing up for, is because the moments where you feel so aligned and so on purpose and in purpose, those make everything worth it. Because I think that's all that a lot of us want to feel, especially like people in the business space. Like we just want to feel like we're living in and on purpose. And so having those moments where you're reminded of that and where you don't question it and where you're just so present in it that nothing else exists, that's why you do it. Woo. So yeah, we hit some amazing growth goals within FENIX. We hired some new team members. We just grew a lot, lots of growing pains, and yeah, just faced a lot of challenges as a leader and as a company, and shit's wild. That's all I gotta say about that. So really, once again, duality, a really challenging and really beautiful year in business as well. Now last category, personal. In every possible way. Relationships were a big theme this year. And this year, I got to navigate conflicts and sticking points with a handful of people that I love. And I was given the opportunity to really show up. It was a major opportunity for me to be really honest about my feelings and experiences and to hold the same space for others and to really arrive at a place where the energy felt clean and cleared out for everyone. And again, it was a matter of both sides being heard. And it's whenever you're in any situation with someone, like you just be in the room with somebody. It's like this Venn diagram. You have them, there's like a little bubble above their head of their experience. And then you have you, and there's a little bubble above head of your experience. And there's a little overlap in the middle that is the same experience you were experiencing, but you are both experiencing the same exact experience very differently. So that's part of why in conflict resolution, it's so important for both people to share their experience as compassionately and honestly as possible, and for the other party to listen. And so just multiple opportunities this year where there was opportunity to come back together and resolve conflict. And, you know, I've had a handful of relationships in the past where people just grow apart, or they ghost, or they never resolve conflicts, or just otherwise don't show up for the hard conversations. And I think a lot of you probably resonate with that. I noticed that in Q&As when we're talking about like friendships and relationships and stuff, talking about our feelings, you know, where they've been hurt, and also acknowledging where we've created or contributed to hurt feelings is tough. It's hard. It's fucking hard, man. But the friendships and relationships that can go through those bumps in the road and come back together with love and safety and trust are the ones that are absolutely worth keeping. And if you have ever been in a relationship, whether it's an intimate relationship, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a family relationship, where you've been able to have a conflict, come together, talk about it, both sides be heard, and then come back together, those relationships are infinitely stronger than the ones where you have never had an issue. Because, and I'm not to say that you should seek out conflict or seek out issues in your relationship, but I do think conflict of some degree is a natural component of any relationship, because at some point there will be dissonance, right? So when you can have any level or any degree of conflict with another person, and you come back together, you talk about it, everybody gets everything out in a compassionate way, that's going to make that relationship so much stronger, because you know that you can be honest with that person. You know you can be honest with that person. You know it's safe to be honest with that person. You know you're not going to just be like gaslit or yelled at or judged by coming with your honest feelings. And it also is a growing opportunity for you to do that for somebody else, and to build the trust in yourself that like, hey, I am somebody that people can come to me with an issue and I can handle it well. I think that's something too. It's hard. It's hard to express your challenging feelings, and it's hard to receive somebody else's challenging feelings. So it's just a really beautiful opportunity. And that's part of why too, I wish people wouldn't shy away from hard conversations. And that was another theme of my year, is just, again, like I mentioned, there's some people that they never resolve conflict. They never show up in hard conversations. They just kind of blindside you or ghost you. I've definitely had that happen within the last year. And that sucks. That sucks way more. And so it makes me that much more grateful for the people that are so incredibly honest and so incredibly devoted to their honesty and their integrity, funnily enough, since that's the word of the year, that they are willing to express to you like, hey, here's where this was hurtful for me. I want to talk about this. I'm so grateful for the people, for the I want to talk about this people versus the just I'm piecing out people. Yeah. So conflict resolution, having hard conversations, growing deeper in relationship with the people in my life. That was a big theme for this year. And once again, each of those conversations, you guessed it, gave me the opportunity to check in with my own integrity. Was I showing up in my integrity in our interactions? Was working on these relationships and staying in these relationships in alignment with the person that I wanted to be, aka were they aligned relationships? Am I acting in my integrity outside of those relationships? All of the litmus tests for integrity. And I'm so grateful for it. So grateful for it. So I nurtured a lot of my existing friendships. And then there was one big, I feel like I'm like giving a superlative, one big standout new friendship that truly changed my life in the best way. And I feel like it would be remiss to not talk about it in this podcast and in this section. And that's my friend Caitlin. We met when I visited Austin in March, and it was just like instant bond, instant friendship. We met when I visited, and just super similar personalities, mannerisms, similar beliefs, similar values, and just a genuine shared spirit and a shared love of life. And it sounds so cheesy, but I truly believe that we should celebrate the people that we love. And my friendship with Caitlin is one of the best things that happened to me this year. And I'm so excited to continue growing our friendship. So Caitlin, if you're listening to this, I love you so much. We went on two New York trips together. We hung out so much in Austin. She was like truly my best Austin friend. And I'm so grateful for her and love her so much, and just really pure friendship vibes. So yeah, so much friendship happened this year, so much love, so much support, so much adventure. I went to new places like Joshua Tree for my friend Jess's birthday in February. I almost said September. We're winding down the hour. It's rough. So went to new places like Joshua Tree, or to old loves like Colorado for my friend Ben's birthday. I was honored enough to also sing at Ben's wedding. So Ben and Dee, their vow renewal, I got to sing at their wedding. Huge honor. I had the best birthday I've ever had in Tulum with 5 of my amazing friends. I went to New York twice and made so many new core memories, and just really solidified that I want to be there at some point in my life, preferably while I'm still young, I put myself out there more this year and really invested in my relationships, and I'm so glad I did. And I didn't put like a whole section for this because I was like, well, that's just a completely different section. But, on the vein of putting myself out there. Moving across the country this year in April and then moving back in November, it's just been the wildest ride of trusting myself wholeheartedly, listening to my intuition, going where it tells me to go, even when it's fucking insane sounding. The move to Austin, I put that together in like 2 weeks. And like I said in the intro to the spiritual journey episode, I have no regrets. It wasn't a bad decision. It wasn't a wrong decision. It just was right for the amount of time that it was right. And then something else was right. And so coming back to Ohio, trying to make the plans to be bilocational between Ohio and New York within the next year or so. That's just what is the most right now. And there were definitely moments when I was deciding to leave Austin where I was just frustrated, because I was like, why couldn't it have been the right time, 6 more months from now. Right. And just being kind of annoyed with myself and being like, oh, why now? But that's the thing about intuition, is it might ask you to do some batshit stuff. And you're going to be happy that you listen to it when you do. But before the thing is actually like played out, you're going to be like, bro, what are you serious? Are you serious? Are you fucking kidding me? Like that's like what conversations between my intuition and myself sometimes sound like. But it wasn't a bad decision whatsoever. It was exactly what I needed in that moment and in that season of life. And then just like every season, it's a season, right? And it was just a shorter season than I anticipated it being. But I'm so fucking happy that I did it. And I'm so happy that I did the next thing in coming back here. And just, I've talked about this before. I don't know if I've talked about it in podcasts or YouTube videos or Instagram posts, but like another one of my intuitive things is like, I just get this knowing feeling when things are about to change in my life, when things are about to shift in a positive direction. And I experience it almost as like this swirling in my stomach, not like an uncomfortable one, but just like a, yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. And I had that when all of the shit was hitting the fan in September. That's also part of how I got through it. I was like, well, my intuition is telling me things are about to be really, really good. So I guess we're fucking just here for the ride. But I started feeling that in September, and then coming back here in November, I have it again of like 2023 is going to be a really good year. I know this year was a lot. I know this year was really hard. I know this year was really challenging and it tested you a lot. And there's been a lot of change in a short amount of time. Like, if I can tell you one thing, please, unless you absolutely must, please do not move across the country twice in 1 year. It is an undertaking, but I can just tell that 2023 is going to be a good year, and I'm going to do my fucking best to make sure that that plays out. But yeah, moving across the country twice in 1 year, once again, putting myself out there, really just jumping and building the parachute on the way down as one does. I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of me. I'm really proud of me. And just, I really fucking went for it this year. And after going through such a hard time in Q4 of 2021 and the beginning of 2022, like, that's just the motto now, is just fucking go for it. And I don't care if it looks or seems strange to anyone else. I don't care if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. I don't care. Like, it and I want to give this to you. It doesn't fucking matter if it looks strange or stupid or silly or nonsensical to somebody else. The only person that it needs to make sense to is you. And sometimes it doesn't even make sense to you. It just feels so inexplicably right within your soul that there is no other option. And that is the 100% correct decision. 100%. That's how you honor your soul, is you fucking listen. You say, I don't care if this looks dumb to somebody else. It feels right. And I'm going to follow it. And that's that. And that's that. So, in summary, I got to be honest, this year has been fucking exhausting, if you couldn't tell. There were so many moments where I felt like I was in a boxing ring, recovered from one blow, got back up to fight, and then got punched in the face again. You know, it's been disorienting, it's been tumultuous, and beyond confusing at times. Like, this year was truly I know that everything happens for a reason, but what the fuck year, right? But just like I said at the beginning, the amplitudes of the lows and highs were pretty even. And for every low point, I made one of my favorite positive memories. You know, for every heartbreak, I felt even bigger love. And for every time I questioned myself, I had moments that felt so in flow and powerful and purposeful. So this year was truly a year of duality, a year of both and. There was both challenge and ease. There was both pain and joy. There was both questioning and certainty. It wasn't necessarily a net in either direction or heavily weighted in either direction. It was pretty even. And it's almost the way that I've come to think of it, it feels like that's the tension of opposites that kept things going, you know? And I will say I would like to have a net positive year next year. I would be totally okay with that. But coming into a place of peace for all of the highs and all of the lows together, averaged out, you know, that I'm really grateful for. That is to be in as peaceful of a place this year as I am with everything that happened. And I know, you know, I don't go into details about a lot of things, and that's very purposeful and very intentional. And I know that kind of hurts me as a creator sometimes, because people like when people are just all out there on the table, but that's just not how I operate. But yeah, without knowing details, this year was one of the most challenging of my life and also one of the coolest. So it definitely wasn't the best year, but it certainly wasn't the worst. And if there's one thing I can say about this year, it's that I showed the fuck up for myself, for my life, and for the people in it. And I think that comes out to a net win. So that was my 2022, the year of checking myself with my integrity, the year of revision, the year of duality, and a major, major year of growth. So I am so grateful for this year. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I'm really glad that I mean it, because I think it's easy to say, oh, well, I'm grateful for the challenges, and then secretly kind of shit on them in your mind. But no, I'm genuinely very grateful for every challenge this year. This year built me. This year strengthened me a lot. And I'm, again, super grateful for it. So I love you guys. I hope you had, if not a great year, a growth year. I would love to hear about how your 2022 was. So shoot me a message on Instagram, however you want to reach out. I would love to hear if this resonated with you. If it did, if you enjoyed this episode, please go over to wherever you listen to podcasts, leave it a 5-star rating and review. That really helps the show out. But that is it from me for 2022. I love you so much. I'm fucking ready to crush it in 2023. And I love you. And I'll see you in the next one.